Join me right now on Kumite TV is PFL Featherweight Contender, Jeremy Kennedy. What's going on, Jeremy?
How's it going, man?
Good, man. The first thing I want to get into is you're signed with the PFL. Your teammates, Gary Mangat and Bibiano Fernandez, they're over in one championship, being very successful. Many
Yeah.
people think that you have to be in the UFC to be successful, right? But do you believe that finding the promotion that fits you is more important than ever now in MMA?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, and we're seeing it more and more now with more avenues. Um, yeah, the UFC is not beyond all. It's good, it's great. It's a top organization, but having been there and now have these offers, like I got offers from one championship too, and PFL, and seeing all these different contracts and money being bounced around. It's not far off. Depending on exactly like you said, is whatever suits you best. What market you could please the best, and just how they treat you and what their schedule and their structure's like, So I think I found my perfect home at PFL here.
And especially you're still very young. You could actually go fight in PFL, win the $1 million, and then go to the UFC and win the belt there, which is incredible that your future could be that way.
Absolutely, it's I've already been into the UFC, and I fought for Brave, and now I could go win this million and then win it again next year or whatever how many seasons I want to do that, and I could go back to the UFC or finish my career out in one, and Bellator's still always there, and that's an option, So MMA is booming, and it's just gonna get nothing but better, and there's always options, And me being 26, I love it, I got a lot of years ahead of me still, and I'm just right where I want to be with this PFL. It's the best money, and it's the most active. It's a young man's tournament. It's potentially 5 fights in just over 7 months, and that's right up my alley. I love that, so I'm all for it.
All right, last month you're on this side of the earth cornering Gary Mangat for his one debut. How was
Yeah.
your trip and your return to Asia?
I loved it, man. It was cool because we got to go out to Thailand about the week beforehand just to get acclimated and all that. And I lived in Thailand in 2014 for a year, so it was nice to come back. It was a different part. It was down in Phuket, so got to check out Tiger Muay Thai, and I want to start adding them into my training camps and whatnot too. Like making a few trips out there at least um, just because, yeah, it's a fight life out there, and it's just the way of life. There's no real distractions, and it's cheap living and everything like that. So I want to start adding that in, and I love the coaches out at Tiger. The Hickman brothers, they're amazing. So it's just one of those things that I want to definitely incorporate and keep things changing and not getting too stagnant. I love my team at Extreme Couture and coming home back here in Canada and just resting a little bit here and then having Thailand as well added in. So yeah, and then the one championship event in Myanmar was pretty cool. It's cool to see different parts of the world and how they run things. I've been out to a few of their events with Bibiano and whatnot like that. So it was just kind of cool to see how they've been developing because I haven't been to a show in a few years. So it's just cool. They're constantly growing, and it was cool to kind of see their weight cut and the way they kind of do things as well. So yeah, it's just opening my eyes to all the different avenues.
A couple weeks back, your teammate and your friend Bibiano, you mentioned him earlier, he won the title, but
Yeah.
it was via DQ, which he was not really satisfied with. He seemed pretty angry about it. What did you think about what transpired with the elbows to the back of the head?
Yeah, it's hard, man. Like that's definitely not the way you want to win. I thought he was winning the whole fight. He rocked Kevin on the feet, and he was definitely controlling it on the ground. And the fight was still early, so you never know exactly how the fight kind of ended. But in my eyes and watching it, I found he was winning, and I still believe he won the first two fights. He finished him in the first fight. The second fight was razor thin, and I believe maybe it's hard with the one's judging criteria because it's so open to speculation because they don't do round by round in the 10-point must system. So it's more of just like opinion based near the end of the fight, and so how much do they value the last minute of a fifth round compared to 4 minutes of dominance, but it may be slower and on the ground controlling and stuff. So there's so much more room for criticism and speculation, and whoever's got the bigger fan base that's more, you know, aggressive online, that you see a lot of these Kevin fans just, you know, coming out of nowhere, you know. So it's hard, and it leaves a lot of speculation, like I said. And then with the elbows, it's hard because nobody knows but Bibiano. So all these guys saying that, oh, he took the easy way out. You have no idea because you didn't get elbowed in the head 8 times. You have no idea what it feels like, you know. And even if, for me, even if he was capable to maybe continue after those 5 minutes, why give yourself such a disadvantage for your opponent's blatant disregard for the rules, you know? So it's now Bibiano's, just because he feels he has to kind of restart the fight with, you know, being damaged. And like he said, he's came out and he's not a guy that lies, you know. He said he was rocked from those elbows, so why would he have to start at a disadvantage, you know? So it's super hard, and nobody knows but Bibiano in that case, you know. So I can't really speak for him. You know, so many fighters might have done different things, or the same thing, or it could have played so many different ways. But, you know, nobody can speak on how hurt he was or how he could have continued or how he was feeling other than Bibiano. And from what I've known for a long time with Bibiano, and I think everybody knows, is he's an honorable guy and he's a true champion. So I don't think he's lying or any stretching the truth or whatnot, or a lot of the things that are saying online, I just don't believe they're true, to be honest. And so, you know, if they want to do a rematch, I think that's awesome. I clearly know who the better fighter is to me in my eyes. And if they got to run it back and Bibiano's got to beat him a 4th time, I guess that's what has to happen. But they'll close this chapter eventually.
Yeah, it seems like they're gonna do that. They're gonna run it back one more time just to, like you said, close the chapter.
Yeah, it's pretty hard not to with those two, you know, with what all of that's transpired. How do you really go on and let Bibiano defend his belt against somebody else now, you know? So I guess that's what they got to do now.
Since leaving the UFC, you've kept yourself in the headlines with 2 incredible performances with Brave in 2018. Obviously, you're signed to PFL now, but how was your experience with that company and thoughts on their future? Because they're still young.
Yeah, they are definitely young, but they do all the right things. You know, they've got the money, the funding with Bahrain and, you know, the Sheikh Khalid. So they're aggressive. It's because it's a hobby to Sheikh. You know, he just wants to see it grow, and I think that's what's going to take them far, because he's enthusiastic, he's involved, he's got the good team behind him, and everybody I dealt with there was amazing. You know, it just wasn't necessarily the right fit for me up until the point of where I got in my career. You know, I'm ready to start fighting closer to home, and those trips to Saudi Arabia and Morocco and stuff like that, it's hard for how busy I want to stay. And the coaches, having coaching available that all have families and kids and stuff like that, to ask them to travel halfway across the world for, you know, weeks on end throughout the year, it's just tough. And they understood that. You know, I had a great relationship ending with them, and PFL is just kind of the perfect fit for me. You know, it's close to home, and it's active. I want to stay active, and that's why I signed with Brave in the beginning. It was because of how active they were willing to keep me. Not like a lot of these other organizations that will kind of shelf you, you know, once every 6 months and whatnot like that. And Brave was willing to, you know, keep me busy, and that's what they did. They honored that, which was awesome. But when it came down to me wanting to stay busy but just stay close to home, they respected that. So I wish all the best to Brave, and I'm going to support them, and I love their show still. They put on crazy shows, you know, so it's pretty cool. But I think they're going to do well, you know, just the way they're doing it. They're building their roster and keeping their guys happy, and that's what promotions need.
Now you're fighting in the PFL tournament for $1 million. Are you in a much better position, you know, at this point in your career than fighting for a championship belt for any other promotion?
Yeah, I mean, the $1 million comes along with a championship belt, you know, so I'm still hunting for that. I just think everything has led me up to this point now, you know, from the UFC. The UFC was great, but I was young. I was a kid there, you know, and I had a lot of growing up to do, and which I did in the UFC, which a lot of guys get done before they get there, you know. And like if I were in the UFC now, I think I would have a whole different career. It would be going in a different path, you know. So I'm glad I got there when I did, got that experience at the highest level, and fought the toughest guys around, and I still was successful, you know. And then my trip into the Middle East fighting for Brave, that was still letting me develop my skills, and I changed a few things after leaving the UFC, um, which let me develop them in Brave in the cage against top level guys out there. And then now here I am at PFL, and I feel like I'm just reaching my prime, not necessarily physically, but mentally as well, which is a huge thing. And for the biggest prize money that's going around right now. And I think this season is definitely the toughest tournament in all of combat sports now with the guys, because everybody after last season, everyone's checks cleared, and they saw how smoothly it ran when it just made it more pleasing for everybody, all the top level guys. So now you look at this roster of 12 featherweights, and you stack that up against any other 12 featherweights that are fighting in a tournament, and you won't find it, So it's going to be a tough, grindy year for everybody, and it's just the winner of this is going to walk away not only with $1 million and the belt, but some serious recognition of being one of the top featherweights in the world without having to, fight a ranked guy in the UFC. I think this is going to rank ourselves amongst, one of the best in the world without having to do that, So I think just because of the level of competition that's in this tournament is going to speak volumes,
There are featherweight talents from all over the world. Have you looked into some of the other guys in the tournament? Have you studied them already, or are you just kind of focused on yourself?
Yeah, man, I'm a nerd when it comes to that. I love studying the game and studying my division. And a lot of these guys, it's funny, a lot of these guys I've known long before even them getting announced in this tournament. Like Japa, the 33-1 Brazilian, I knew of him when he was like 16-0 fighting in Brazil, just because, I found his record fascinating, and Movlid, the 13-0 guy from Russia, who fought Herbert Burns in one championship. I watched that fight, and he was on my radar, even though I never really thought our paths would cross. But just they're my, competition. They're my weight class, and they're the top of the world from wherever they are. And Andre Harrison has been on my radar for, ever. I think everyone, has been aware of him because he's been fighting on the regional scene for so long. Lance Palmer's my training partner, my guy, I love that guy. So he's a tough top guy. Almeida, I've watched him in their 2 fights. Just tons of these guys. Freddie Asuncel's been around because of his brother. I know a lot of them. Bezerra, a Bellator vet, Titan FC vet. And I've watched a lot of his fights, and I'm excited to have drawn him first. He's a tough guy. He came into the tournament last year kind of near the end, but instantly with that knockout, he rose as one of the top guys in the division instantly, and now he's one of the more feared guys, which I like because I'm going to come in, take him out first, and then put the rest of these featherweights on notice.
Yeah, you speak of Bezerra. He is your first fight.
Yeah.
Thoughts on him, man? Like his skill set. Of course, he has that knockout power, but other than that, what do you see in him?
Yeah, I think that's just he's more of a dangerous guy in that aspect of he's got heavy hands, he's aggressive, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, he's got good submissions, but overall putting it all together, that's where I find he's his holes is that my wrestling's going to be better. I think I'm the bigger, taller athlete, the longer guy on the feet. I think I'll have better conditioning. Just putting them together, the transitions in between the wrestling, the grappling, the striking, I'm going to be able to put together better. I actually kind of see him a little bit as Hani Jason, the opponent when I fought in Brazil. Very similar, where they're kind of wild on the feet, throw big haymakers, but they hit hard. Good jiu-jitsu, black belt, Smiths guys off their back, on top, but they lack the little in-betweens, and I think that's where I'm going to kind of be able to exploit that and run through him, just with my aggressiveness and just keep the pressure on him, keep my hands in his face, take him down, ride him on top, ground and pound him, and just overwhelm him.
You said you're hitting your prime mentally and physically.
Yeah.
You're going to be fighting 5 times this year. Has the mental approach changed a little bit? Because you're going to be continuously fighting, so you can't turn it off anytime. You have to be on.
Yeah, that it's kind of like a season, but it's just fight season. It's always it's a lifestyle. I'm always in training camp, and that's just the way I'm gonna approach this whole year, is just constantly, watching what I eat, keeping my weight down, constantly being in the gym. If I need to take a day off, it's okay, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon this whole year. So it's just take each fight one at a time. And the biggest thing is going to be hard, I find, is not the continuous weight cuts, because I'll keep my weight pretty low, and it's not the continuous training camps. It's more of going into a fight, a tough guy like Bezerra, and then not really having a long turnaround time. I mean, it's 8 weeks out pretty much after that, from May 23rd to July 25th. You got to be kind of bouncing right back into it. So if you get any little bumps or bruises, you're going to have to train right through them all the way through, and you look at things like how simple little, hand breaks or hand fractures, or, those shin bone bruises and stuff like that. It's just, you won't really have time after the fight to let it heal for a week or two, because you got to get right back into the gym and train. But I think that goes for all 12 guys. It's going to be just how you manage your rehab and your injuries throughout the whole year. I think it's going to be an art of its own, and all the way into the October, the playoffs, and then you got 2 fights in one night, and then, not shortly after, you're fighting in the finals. So it's going to be a long grind, and it's just how you approach these fights. I don't think you can fight, conservatively, because that'll show with the point system and whatnot. Like, you got to go for the finish, and you got to put these guys away. But it's also just, what kind of wars you get in, and you gotta treat that right. You got to have a good recovery team behind you for this year. And I think that I'm taking all the right steps to do that anyways.
There's many little aspects of this tournament, in your preparations and everybody's preparations. But I feel that keeping your weight low is going to be so important compared to guys that go in there, and cut a lot of weight and then go into the fight the next day. Do you think that's going to be imperative in all these matchups?
I think the big thing is going to be more so not getting too big after your fight. Like, everyone typically cuts roughly the same. It's not a secret. You're about 15 to 20 pounds bigger when you get back in the cage. As a natural featherweight, if you're a decent-sized featherweight, you're going to be walking in at about 160 to 165. That's just realistics of it. The guys that are lighter, all the power to them, but those extra 5 pounds, trying to lose it again isn't going to be a big deal. But it's just not getting too much heavier after that, and then gearing up for another weight cut. Like, you don't want to be getting up to 75, like stuff like a lot of guys do, when they get out of fight camp, they explode up and then they start working it back down. But this one, you don't really have that time frame to do. So, you'll have to, I'm going to just keep it moderate. After my fight, it's fight camp again. It's not like I get a vacation. I'm not going to eat whatever I want and get to have my splurge week. It's just going to be, I fight on the Thursday. I might have a few nice dinners Friday, Saturday, and then come Monday morning, it's back to strict diet and fight camp again.
Do you have a small core group you put together for your preparations, since you will be in camp for the whole year?
Yeah, like I'll have my coaches that are with me the whole time. And then Extreme Couture, there's tons of bodies, right? But I like to have, for my sparring especially, like a core group of guys my size, featherweights, and I try to find the guys. Mostly the big thing for me is height. I like to spar. If I'm, facing a guy like Bezerra, who's, for example, 5'8", and I'm a 6 foot tall featherweight, I don't want to be facing or sparring guys that are taller than me, or southpaws, or just stuff like that. I kind of keep them roughly relatively that frame. A shorter guy likes to strike, but he's got a good off of his back. I just try to find his best suitable guys for training partners, and then I'll probably round up 4 or 5 guys out of the gym, ask them to kind of like, come in for separate times for me for sparring and stuff like that. And then the rest of the stuff is just business as usual out at Extreme Couture and 10th Planet Las Vegas, and just all the training I do out in Vegas. And then my coaches will be the same all the way through. But just fight by fight, I'll kind of be swapping in and out of training partners depending on, who my opponent is, But that's the one good thing about Vegas, is how many resources you have and all the different world-class featherweights that are out there, all the time. So
it seems like you found your knockout power in your last 2 fights. It has returned, because I know you were knocking guys out earlier in your career. Has anything changed in your striking? Have you been working with anybody in particular to kind of find that the angles, or what has changed?
Yeah, it's a big thing has been my confidence. Like I said, when I was in the UFC, I had a lot of little mental things going on. Like I had a lot of mental growing to do. I was going in there and fighting not to lose, but not really to win. Just taking guys down and holding them, trying to play it safe, ride it out. I was holding a lot onto my undefeated record, and wins in the UFC meant so much, and I didn't want to get cut if you lost and you had a bad showing or whatever, which actually affected my performances. Once I finished up my contract with the UFC and I was moving on, I was fighting like, I had nothing to lose. I didn't, not like I didn't care, but I didn't hold too much value on, I have to win this fight. It's like, no, I want to go out there and have fun because this is what I do for a living. This is what I love to do. And so I got that fire back, that confidence, and then I switched up my training camp and going out to extreme and sparring with world-class guys, builds confidence in the gym too. Like I was having hard rounds in the gym against, I look at my training partners and I look at my opponent and I'm just like, why, what am I worried about here? So it's like I'm fighting the best guys in the world every week. So my new coaches as well added a lot of new tools in. Eric Nixick and Eddie Baracco are two great striking coaches that I've incorporated, and a lot of tools they brought to the table right away. I clicked right away because it just worked well with my style, and we jived well, and I was implementing the stuff into sparring right away, which usually takes months and months and months to be able to practice, to be able to do into sparring, to be able to do into a fight. I was learning them in training camp and pulling them off in the fight. Like, the finishing sequence of my last fight was something I drilled consecutively all throughout camp with one of my coaches, and to be able to pull it off picture perfect like that, just shows that the proof's in the pudding, So I think I got lots more to show, and I'm excited about it.
All right, man. Well, I'm excited for you too, man, because it seems like you're hitting your stride and having this $1 million, at the end of the rainbow, it's incredible.
Exactly. The big thing is I'm not really looking at the million right now. I'm looking at Bezerra and that win, just like I would look at any other fight, And then I think a lot of these guys are getting a little too overzealous and thinking about who I'm going to fight in the finals and who I'm going to fight in the quarterfinals. And to me, we're all human and we all got to fight each other twice first to even get there. And they're paying me good. The money I'm fighting for my first two fights, that doesn't include the $1 million, is more than my last fights with Brave, and I treated those just as one single fight, so I'm looking at the same as this one. It's one single fight. I have a show and I have a win rehearsed, and I'm just going out there to improve my record to 14-1, get another finish against a top guy, and win some money for that and move on to July, and that's all I'm looking at right now. The money at the $1 million at the end of the year is going to be what's, the perfect ending, but I'm not really looking at that right now. There's a long road to get there.
All right, one last thing before I let you go. In your last fight for the UFC, you faced Alex Volkanovski.
Yeah.
He is now set to face Jose Aldo. What are your thoughts on that matchup, and do you have a favorite in that fight?
Yeah, I learned a lot from fighting Alex. I would love to be able to run that one back, just because, again, I know I keep coming back to this, but mentally I had some blocks that I had to get through. Physically I was in the best shape of my life for that fight, but I just had a lot of different things mentally going on. So I would like to test my skills against him, just seeing how well he's done since then. Sorry about my dog here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so he and the better he does, it's good for me too. I wish the best for him. I think he's ranked 4th in the world now. So it just shows, how good of an opposition I've been fighting. And him against Aldo, it's pretty crazy to even have them in the same sentence. Aldo's a legend. But 3 rounds, I think, favors any 3-round fight favors Aldo. He's never really, outside of the Conor fight, he's pretty well been ahead of most of the fights. Even against Holloway, I had him winning, the first couple rounds. He just kind of faded near the end. So I think 3 rounds definitely favors him. But there's that stuff going on with him being in and out of the hospital with staff and the infections and stuff. So you never really know how much training he's doing now. And Volky, he's a killer. He's a guy that's just dedicated to his craft. So you got to be on your A game to fight him no matter what. So for me right now, with just the headlines alone, I would take Volkanovski. But prime, in shape, everything goes smoothly for a 3-round fight, I'd probably take Aldo. So it all depends. There's so many things that go into it behind the scenes that we don't see. But for me, if I was a betting man, I'd be putting my money down on Volkanovski.
No matter what, man, I think that you and Volkanovski will meet in the future somehow,
Yeah,
some way. I think it's like
yeah.
it's destined to happen.
Absolutely, man, and that's my only loss. So that's what fires me really good to run through this to eventually make it to the UFC. It would be to get that one back. Like if the money elsewhere, it's where I want to be. But if I were to ever go back to the UFC, it would definitely be hunting to get that one back. So yeah, we'll see what the future holds. But for me right now, it's just he's on different paths. I'm on different paths. We're in different organizations. So I just wish the best to him. But yeah, I just want to keep winning and keep improving and win this $1 million and move on.
All right, man. May 23rd, Long Island, New York. Thank you for
Sure.
your time, Jeremy, and good luck to you, man.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.